The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters. Greetings and welcome back to the Personal Safety Show. Once again, this is Marcus Melnick, your host, and we are mid-conversation with Nancy Milburn from The Logical Dog. We're going to be continuing right now. One of the blogs that you wrote talks about dogs dreaming, and I delight in watching my dog dream because he moves and he sometimes is verbal. What do dogs dream about?
Well, just lately, there's been a lady who has a dog who has buttons that have different concepts on them, and the dog presses the button to communicate with its owner. This is quite a phenomenon lately. It's about the last 5 to 10 years these buttons have been available. And there are lots of YouTube sites with dogs and cats that press buttons to communicate. And one day the dog was dreaming, and she woke the dog to find out what it was. And the dog said it was stranger dog outside that he was dreaming about.
Wow.
Which is amazing. And this dog does things like, one time it said, help, ouch, ear. And it had an ear infection. So it's wonderful you can actually communicate with your animal now.
I'm wondering if that would work with my dog. He's sometimes really smart.
Well, it's a trainable thing. It's usually best to start when they're puppies.
Okay.
So it's because it takes them a long time to get this into their head to be able to communicate with the buttons, that they press a button and it means something. They don't understand the words that are on there, but the buttons are recordable and there is a word, but that's more for the people.
So you don't want to move them around like the shell game because it's probably by position.
Oh no, you can move them around because it's all one smell.
Ah, okay.
The dog, each button, the dog's nose is so powerful. We live in a wonderful world of sight. We can see color. Well, most of us anyway.
I can't.
Can see color. You can't see color.
Oh, well,
I'm sorry for you because it's beautiful. The colors are wonderful. And if you can see color and you can see this tiniest different hues and differences in shade and stuff. Well, this is what a dog can see. It can smell. They can tell twins apart where we can't tell. You looking at a twin, we can't tell which one is which. But the dog can through smell. And they can smell things that are old, like, the person's passed 5 days before and they still know that the person's passed. There's a little thing that you might be interested in is that when it snows, all the smells in the air are gathered by the snow and fall to the ground. And this is why most dogs, when you have a new snowfall, go out and do like snowplow, run along with their nose in the snow.
And that's
because they're smelling all the smells that have come down from the air.
Well, I do have some follow-up questions on that. If a dog's sense of, well, let me step back. When we go on I can't say it too loud because my dog is here. But when we go on a WALK,
yes.
He goes nuts. He loves being outside. And my wife was like, wow, he really loves being outside. I said, yeah, to him, outside is Facebook to us.
Yes.
So she's like, oh, okay.
Female.
Yes.
He's getting his female.
Exactly. So, dogs are very sensitive with their smell. Why are they sticking their nose up people's rear ends?
Well, that's how they tell you apart. They stick their nose up each other's rear ends. When a dog greets, they usually touch noses and then immediately go to the hind end. Because at the hind end, they can tell what sex you are, whether you're sexually available in each or other, whether you're sick, whether you're in health, all those things. You can tell by smell. And things like when a person's blood sugar goes low, you can train a dog to alert the person that the blood sugar is dropping below what it should be. and for them to do something about it.
I know someone who had a dog like that. A poodle. Mm-hmm. It was a poodle, and it was more for seizures. When his blood sugar tanked, he'd have seizures, and the dog would alert him, and he'd lay down so he wouldn't get hurt.
Yes.
Which is very interesting. So, dogs typically are very forgiving and loving, and some are just very generous with their kisses, and some are very stingy with their kisses. Why is there a difference there?
You're talking about licking and
yes.
and excessive licking. It's not kisses, it's licking. Licking, there's a number of different reasons. When they lick around your mouth, they're doing something that they would do to their mom or their dad, is in the sense that the puppies lick the mouths of adult dogs, so the adult dogs regurgitate food. So they're trying to get you to give them food by regurgitating food when they lick you around the mouth. Now, if they're excessive licking on your hands and other places, that's quite often an anxiety problem. Licking is like sucking a thumb, and it relieves their anxiety. So you may have an anxious dog, especially if you have one that's excessively licking. It's most likely an anxious dog, and they're trying to relieve their anxiety.
I must have a calm
guy. And that's the
guy.
same if they lick.
He doesn't lick at all, very rarely.
Yeah, well, there you go. And some dogs lick floors and walls and things like that, and that's totally anxiety.
Interesting. I did not know that. Why should people adopt from shelters rather than breeders?
There are so many dogs in shelters, and you can get a purebred in a shelter too. Lots and lots of purebreds are in shelters. And the most terrible thing is that most of them don't find homes, and most of them are euthanized. Not where I am now, but I was in a large city in Hamilton, near Toronto, which is about 500,000 people. And they euthanized 75 dogs a week, every week. Wow. Because they had to make room for the new intakes. Because there wasn't enough people to adopt. People just don't adopt. And shelter dogs can be lovely, just wonderful, wonderful dogs.
We got lucky.
With a little bit of training, they're great.
We actually didn't have to do very much training. It was already housebroken, and he was in a kill shelter for a year and a half, and he was supposed to be euthanized at 9 months. But he was such a sweet dog, the shelter staff hid him when the euthanizers came. So he was in someone's office or something, and that's how he survived. He's from Louisiana and ultimately came up here. So when he saw snow, I'm sure he was very surprised. But speaking of snow and precipitation, why do some dogs not want to go out into the rain?
That's personal preference, right? Some just love the water, some don't, right? I've had both. I've had dogs that I've had a dog hold her pee for over 24 hours because she wouldn't go out in the rain. She would not go out in the rain and walk around puddles and things like that. And I have another dog that, as soon as you see the water, he's swimming.
Right.
He's in there swimming.
Yeah.
It's nothing that you can, it's a personality thing. Just personality. I just don't like getting wet.
I've heard other things. I don't know. Yeah. That's why I'm asking.
It's like people, some people don't mind the heat. Some people don't want to get cold. I'm one of the ones that don't like cold. I'm always wrapped up in toques and scarves and things when it gets cold, which is now why I go to Mexico for 6 months.
I don't blame you. I wish I could do that. Some dogs are fearful. Some dogs are ferocious. And when someone adopts a dog, sometimes it's a little bit of a mystery. So how would someone alleviate the fears of a dog?
In an adoption situation, you have somewhere round about 2 or 3 weeks, which I call the honeymoon period. The dog has come into a new environment. He's cautious. He's wary, wondering what the rules are, how he's going to live. This is a whole new situation for him. This is your opportunity to put the rules in place that you want. So the very first time he barks at something you don't want. Let's say he's in the car and he barks at a dog outside. You do not want a dog barking in your ear when you're driving. So the very first time it happens is when you stop and you deal with it and you scold him and tell him that it's not correct. And then usually it'll never happen again. But if you let it go the first time, the next time is worse. The next time is worse until you have a dog that is screaming in your ear while you're trying to drive. And this goes for everything. Everything that you don't want the dog to do, you deal with it the very first time it happens. So it's a good idea when you bring a new dog into your home, any dog, including a new puppy or from a rescue, is to put a leash on it, a house leash, and let it drag around. And then you always are able to catch it. If it scurries under, if it takes something, a sock or a t-shirt, and scurries under the bed with it, you can get them because you've got a leash on them. If you reach in with your hand, then you create something called resource guarding. And the dog is underneath the bed, and then he starts growling, possibly biting. Not a good idea. Grab the leash, pull him out. Quite easy. And a leash on is an amazing tool. If your dog is barking at the window and you tell him, thank you, we know that there's somebody outside, you can be quiet now, and the dog does not stop, then the leash on, you stand on the leash and you stand close enough that the dog has to lie down. It's hard for the dog to bark when it's lying down. It's not impossible, but it's harder for them to bark. So then they are quiet, and you say, good, quiet, and they're quiet for 5-10 seconds, and you give them a cookie. Then they learn, oh, I bark when there's somebody out there, and then I come over and I get my cookie. That's an easy one. Most people don't know what to do about the barking.
Yeah, we don't really have an issue unless someone's in front of the house. And some people he doesn't bark at, and sometimes he does. And he wants to go and play. That's what he wants.
Yeah.
So speaking about leashes, I want to segue into collars. And I want to share a story with you and the listeners, or at least half of a story. You mentioned that your son was young and took the dog and knew that you had to work with him. And I also have children, and they're teenagers. You know, they want to help for the first 5 minutes. So 5 minutes after we got the dog, and I'm kidding when I say that, but early on, my stepson goes to take the dog for a walk. And we have someone in our neighborhood who is less than sane. I'll just leave it at that. And I use this story in other venues as well. And she came up to him and forcefully grabbed the leash out of his hand and started yanking on it. This is how you handle a dog. And just very violent. Not that she hurt the dog, but very, very stern without knowing the dog. And I'm like, this person's a moron, which we already knew. And one of the things she told him was, you need to get a prong collar, a choker, a shock collar, anti-bark. And he wasn't barking. But she gave him all this advice, and he says, I got to go. And he went home. And there's a second part to the story that's not relevant here. But what types of collars are warranted for various dogs and behaviors and training and that type of thing? I'm
really unusual because I advocate no collar. I do, in my classes, the leashes are on the ground and the people are not allowed to touch them. They can stand on the leash to stop the dog leaving their side, but that's it. And it makes the people work harder. I find that the prong collars and the e-collars, I really don't like the idea of hurting a dog. And they do hurt. I don't care what the guys say, oh no, it's pressure all the way around and all this. And if it's used correctly and put on correctly, why do you need to know how to put something on correctly? Right? This is what happened to me when I was training back in England. When I first started training, the idea of dog training was there was no treats and the dog did it out of respect, and you did corrections with a choke chain. So I bought into this just because this is what I was being taught as a new dog owner. And then when I became a dog trainer, it was the same thing. I didn't realize there was anything different. And I was finding that people were not using the choke chain correctly. The choke chain should be used as not a correction tool, but as a attention-getting tool. You click the choke chain, it tightens and releases. Now, if it's on incorrectly, it tightens and doesn't release, and it gets tighter and tighter, hence the name choke chain. And they will choke the dog. It's not good. So I was having such a hard time getting people to use the choke chain correctly. And then there were some people who didn't want to put a choke chain on as well because they didn't like the idea. So I turned to a collar. And again, I found that the people were using the collar incorrectly. They were trying to control the dog through the leash and the collar. And that's no way to control a dog. You have to make the dog want to do what you want to do. I tell the people why the dog is doing what it's doing. And then give the dog a reason to do what you want it to do. And so I stopped using collars altogether. If I'm doing not in a class, but one-on-one, then there's no collar on the leash on the dog at all. When I go to a person's house, and in a class situation, there is collars or harnesses on, and they have to step on the leash just to stop at the beginning when the people are learning how to get their dog's attention, how to keep their dog's attention. Then they stand on the leash because the dog loses focus and starts going to, one of the other dogs. Obviously, if the dog is reactive, then they have to have private lessons first. They can't be in a group class. But that's something that I assess before I allow them into the class.
So when you say reactive, I'm guessing you're talking about negative, not like greeting the other dogs, like we sniff the nose, sniff the butt. That's not reactive. You're talking about like aggressive. No.
Well, reactivity has lots of different forms. Some of it is like your dog just wants to go and play, but they start barking because they want to be let go of the person to let go of the leash so they can go over and play. And some of it is barking like that and lunging and all that. And there are some that are fear aggressive, which is most of it is fear. Even the ones who rush and bite are fearful. They want you to run away. And they have learned that biting sends people away. They bite. It starts off with barking. The mailman comes, not so much now because we don't get so much mail, but the mailman comes to the door. He barks and barks and barks, and then the mailman leaves. Okay, barking works. Barking sends that mailman away, even though he doesn't understand that it's the mailman's going to come and go no matter whether he barks or not. But that's how it works. And then they get worse and worse. And then if you don't leave, then you get bitten. And then it accelerates and it gets worse and worse and worse unless you do something about it. And what I do is change the focus. The dog is usually trying to take command, trying to be the leader. He's trying to control the situation. So I teach the owner to be the leader. And so the dog doesn't have to be the leader. And the dog is looking to his owner for direction. So that when the owner sees something, what they call a trigger, like another dog or person what the dog has been reactive to before, that the owner turns to the dog and says something like, don't even think about it. And then you sit and you stay, or you walk around, walk them in a circle. Different methods for different things, but it works. And it's amazing to see the difference. And the people are astonished that all of a sudden the dog is obeying because they took leadership.
We were talking about collars. Are you talking about no collar during training or no collar ever?
No collar during training, and leash and collars are mandatory in some cities that you have to have your dog leashed. So my idea is that the dog should be beside you whether he's got a leash on or not.
I ask because I'm outside.
And I should segue into e-collars and stuff. E-collars are the electronic collars that give usually they're vibration, noise, and shock. Now, the vibration and noise are okay in the sense that if your dog is far away, you can get their attention. Like if you call them and they're far enough away, they literally cannot hear you. That's why the shepherds and things use whistles, because whistles travel farther. Then the sound or the vibration to call your dog to you is okay. But I disagree with the shock collar totally. Why shock the dog? First of all, the dog, if he's shocked in a certain spot, he thinks that spot is what shocked him, not because he's doing something wrong.
I'll admit some wrongdoing here. The dog that broke me, we ended up getting an e-collar for him, and
Okay.
it saved his life.
Hmm.
We opened the front door. He bolted, and there was a ton of traffic. And I gave him a small shock, and boom, he turned around and came back in. So I very thankful.
Yeah, he's afraid of the spot that was shocked him, so he ran home. Yeah.
Whatever worked, it saved his life. We don't do that with our current dog, and we don't even have a choke collar, or he just has a regular
You see,
band.
one of the things that I would teach is what they call threshold training for your dog. Is that he's not allowed to step out the door until he's invited. So you can have the door open and the dog sits in the house car, and then until he's invited to walk through.
And that's someone else trained him, previous owners from my guy. But that's what he does. If we say we're going to go on a WALK, and he's here, that's why I'm spelling it like a little kid, he will basically jump straight up and down at the door until you put a leash on him, and then we're out. And he just loves going. So
do you want to stop that?
No, I love it. He waits for us. I mean, he's excited. And we once we tell him, settle down, sit, he settles down. So, but before we say it, he's very, very, very excited. But I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Does he pull when he's on the walk?
Yes.
Does he pull you?
Yes.
Okay. So what you need to do is stop increasing that excitement before he goes. So say you're going for a walk and go put the leash on him and then don't open up the door, go back and sit down. Okay. And do that several times until he's calm. And then get yourself ready, get your shoes on, your keys, or whatever you normally do, all the triggers that would normally trigger him that he's going for a walk. And then don't do it.
Okay.
Including the leash on. And then go to the door again. And if he gets all excited again, you go back and sit down. Okay. Until you can go to the door and he's not excited. The other thing is you make sure you open the door, you say stay to him, and open the door an inch. And if he rushes at the door is shut. You gradually open the door further and further until he will stay inside the house while you step over the threshold with the leash. And when he's still staying, and then you quietly call him through. That sets up much calmer for the walk. And while you're on the walk, what I would do is that if he starts having any tension on the leash, your attitude should be, well, if you're going to pull me, we're not going that way. We'll go back. And now he's behind you. Okay. So then he'll rush forward and then you go the other way.
Okay.
And he'll rush the other way. So you go back and forth. You can spend half an hour in front of your house going back and forth.
You just answered my next question. That's what I was. How long do you do this for? This is a fantastic conversation. What final thoughts can you share regarding pets, dogs, training that maybe I haven't asked you that you'd like to discuss?
There's nothing wrong with loving your dog. You can kiss and cuddle and all those wonderful things. But you must be leader if you want a healthy relationship. Most of the dogs are pack animals. They've been bred to be submissive, and they want a leader. So don't let your dog be the leader. Be the leader in everything. You don't have to be harsh. You have to be firm, but fair. And your attitude should be, this is going to happen. Whatever you want to happen, it's going to happen. I don't care how long it's going to take, but it's going to happen. I am not going to get frustrated. I am going to stay calm. But I'm going to rearrange the environment until you do what I require. And then we can go for a walk and have fun.
Very good. Can you once again share your contact information, website, and social media handles for our listeners?
You can join my Instagram. I've got 22,000 followers on Instagram, and it's at The Logical Dog. Facebook is the same. Facebook page is The Logical Dog. And the website, there's a website store, which is thelogicaldog.com. And for the blog, there is a link on the thelogicaldog.com. There's a link in the menu that take you straight to the blog. But if you want to go straight to the blog by yourself, then it is doglogic.ca. That's DOGLOGIC.ca. And your best way to contact me if you have a specific problem and you want some help is Nancy at doglogic.ca. That's NANCY at DOGLOGIC.ca. Just remember to put the CA in there because it's Canada and not .com.
Very good. Nancy, thank you very much for taking the time to share your passion with our listeners. And it's my passion too, now that I have a dog again and I'm back in being a dog dad. I love it. But thank you very much for taking the time to educate our listeners.
You're very welcome. And thank you for having me on. I've enjoyed talking to you very much.
We have monthly concealed carry license CCL classes in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. Dates can be seen at firearmmentor.com/classes. If you have a question, we can be reached at www.firearmmentorcard.com. That is our electronic business card, has all of our contact information and links in it. It's the easiest way to get a hold of us. Until next time, stay safe out there, and I'll see you at the shooting range. This is Marcus Melnick from Firearm Mentor signing off. The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.